Welcome back to another episode of Tuff Talk with 2-4 with your boy Emmanuel 2-4. And in this episode of Tuff Talk with 2-4, we will be talking about top 10 quarterbacks in the National Football League going into 2025-2026 NFL season. This episode is basically run off of ESPN dropped a top 10 NFL quarterbacks list according to NFL coaches, executives, and scouts in the National Football League. And I'm just making my own list of that because I didn't agree with some of the stuff they had in that list and some of the placements that were done in that list and who was on that list, especially. And we'll just start with my list at first. Me personally, my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. I think I have Mahomes at one. I don't think that's really an argument. I think we all know how much regard Patrick Mahomes. I think you got to give credit to what he's done, even though the playing style of him is not everybody's cup of tea, even though the way they win some games sometimes it's not everyone's cup of tea, but he does it over and over again and he's dominant. And we can't take away one game from him in the last 4 seasons of runs where he's went to the Super Bowl and stuff like that. We can't take one game away from him and make that define him as a football player because he has won 2 Super Bowls before that game that happened in the Super Bowl this season. He did get to the Super Bowl where he had to go toe to toe with the MVP and Josh Allen. He did in multiple scenarios take down CJ Stroud, who's one of those guys in the NFL. So I think with Mahomes, he's number one. I don't think there's really any argument with that. You got to beat him before you can really get that argument. The only one that has beat him in recent memory is Jalen Hurts, but I just don't think Jalen Hurts is in that conversation of those top guys. I think number two, I think we gotta go with Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson second in MVP last year. Y'all know he was my MVP and second in MVP 2 years ago. I mean first in MVP 2 years ago. I think he's Jackson Jackson. I think he's been the most consistent quarterback, in my personal opinion, over these last 2 seasons, outside of Mahomes, whatever it comes to winning, regular season success, accolades, and statistics. And I think he's been the most consistent outside of Mahomes. And if we want to use the criteria I just used right there, he's probably as good as Mahomes as that criteria. It's just he hasn't won the big game yet. So that's the only thing that's stopping him from being in that conversation. But one best running cornerback, arguably in the NFL, has upgraded his passing way better. And I'm expecting him to have a really great season up ahead. I think number three for me, I gotta go Josh Allen. Joe Burrow's great. He's amazing. He's anything you want in a quarterback, but I just personally have Josh Allen coming off of a crazy season, went toe to toe with Mahomes again, and if a few plays go differently, we are probably talking about him in the Super Bowl, and who knows how that goes. I mean, he's one of those guys, won MVP this season, had some crazy games where he put some crazy numbers up. And I think he's just one of those dudes. You can have him at second. A lot of people have him at first, but I think Josh Allen one of them dudes, and he shows it to you that he's that guy. Every single Sunday throughout the season. Probably you could argue that he had the best season this season as a whole, whether it comes to stats, on a Sunday to Sunday basis, where there was a lot of Sundays where we were saying Josh Allen could be taking this Bills team to the Super Bowl, and we got to give credit to what he did with what he had. He did not have the best receiving cores in the National Football. He didn't have the greatest targets as a whole. He didn't have the greatest running back of all time, and he put out there and performed and took this team to the AFC Championship game and had him a few plays away from winning the game and going to the Super Bowl. So we got to give him credit. I think number four is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow didn't make the playoffs last season, but you got to give him credit where it's due. 43 touchdowns, 4,918 passing yards. Statistically, you can argue probably had one of the best, probably had the best season in the NFL. You can also say to the point where this man, Joe Burrow, if this goes differently or that goes differently, Joe Burrow's probably winning MVP and he was in the MVP combos without him even making a playoff appearance. Just crazy numbers he put up. Had a ridiculous offense. It's kind of sucks because we're not putting him in those top echelon guys, and it feels like we're blaming his defense. It's not solely his defense. I think it's just what we have seen Lamar and Allen do what they have done. We just haven't seen Burrow. I think he won comeback player of the year this season. I forgot who won it, but I think he was he was pretty close in that running because he was injured the season before. I think Burrow is just one of them dudes. He's number four. I think Daniels is number five. I mean, great, spectacular rookie season. Led the Commanders to the NFC Championship game in a conference where we didn't even know if they would be one of the top teams in the division, for crying out loud. Let alone the conference. Took them to an NFC Championship game. Took down the Lions. Took down the Buccaneers. And fell short against the eventual Super Bowl champions, but it wasn't on him the reason why they lost that game. And that's one thing that a lot of these quarterbacks that are on this top 10 list or outside of this top 10 list, that's one thing you could say about them. When their team loses, you can probably put the blame on them. You couldn't put the blame on Jaden Daniels whenever they lost to the Eagles in that NFC Championship game. One of the most prolific quarterbacks. He's coming for a second year. We hope he doesn't get a sophomore slot. I'm even saying that as a Cowboys fan because he's one of my most favorite quarterbacks to watch, and we'll see what he does. I think he's number five. I think Jaden Daniels is one of those dudes on this list in the NFL in general. It's just one of those dudes where I feel like he's perfect at five. I don't think there's no argument up for him better than those four guys above him, and I don't think there's no argument for anybody else below him to be better than him. So I think he's one of those guys that's a lock. I like him at that five spot. Number six, you can go away. Some people have Stafford. ESPN has Stafford. Some people would even put Goff. Some people put Hurts. Some people, it's up to you. I have me personally. I have Jalen Hurts at number six. I think we got to give him credit where it's due. He delivered for his football team in those last two games of the season. One against the Chiefs defense and flat out torched them. And you could say it was he got carried there. And at the end of the day, when it mattered most, we saw Jalen Hurts perform on the biggest lights. It wasn't Saquon Barkley 150-yard rushing game that took them to the promised land. It was Jalen Hurts putting that ball in his hands and being flat out dynamic and winning that team that game. And I feel like Jalen Hurts as a whole, he still has a lot to prove because of the way the playoffs started with him with the Packers game and in the snow game against the Rams. But I think at the end of the day, we got to give Jalen Hurts credit where it's due. He manages really well with what he has. And if we're going to take a credit from him and say that he's getting carried and all that, then why are we putting people like Jared Goff in this top 10 who has as great as a supporting cast, especially offensively, as a Jared Goff, and he's not getting held to them that critical of a thing. So I have me personally, I have Jalen Hurts at number six. Number seven, I think we put Matthew Stafford, still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, despite him being at the old age of 37 years old, can throw that ball really effectively. Has performed really well over the past two seasons, coming off a Super Bowl 3 seasons ago. I think he's one of them dudes. Matthew Stafford is. Now going into this season, I don't know if he's going to look a little bit old, look a little bit not like himself, because a little bit you could tell he was still losing. That his mobility is losing year after year after year. You can see that in Stafford, but he has Adams. He has Puka. He's playing in Los Angeles. He's not gonna come out here and look terrible. So I'm interested to see how he performs this season. I have Stafford at seven. I know a lot of people are gonna disagree with me, but have at it. CJ Stroud at eight. The fact that ESPN did not have him in his list, and they had Herbert and all of these other players in the list is just kind of disappointing to me. But I just wanna we'll get to that list later. CJ Stroud seven. I mean, yeah, CJ Stroud at eight, one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. We're discrediting him, and I feel like people are forgetting how good he is because he had a banged up wide receiver core. Y'all forget at one point Nico was injured. He lost Nico. He lost Tank Dell near the end of the season. He lost Stephon Diggs for the whole regular season. I believe he lost Nico for like 8 weeks. He had a banged up offensive line. Yeah, the deep ball went down, but the deep ball went down because he had no time for receivers to develop the routes. And yes, y'all look at the record and y'all look at everything that he was in the worst division of football, but at some point you got to understand what he had to deal with. And that whatever he had to deal with and all the shenanigans that he went through throughout the whole regular season, his season still ended off with a divisional round against the best quarterback in the football league and the most dominant quarterback in the NFL throughout the 21st century. I mean, throughout the 2020s. And he went toe to toe with him. A few calls go their way. Few people feel like they got robbed, and he's probably in the AFC Championship game, despite all the drama, despite everything that went wrong for them throughout that season. That season was not set up for CJ Stroud to perform any well good. So I think him getting number 8 spot. I feel like that's a great spot for him, especially with him having to prove he's gonna have a healthy team going into this season somewhat because he doesn't have Tank Dell at the start of the year. But yeah, I think we're forgetting how great Stroud is, and to have players over him like a Herbert and Goff is just flat out disrespectful. Flat out disrespectful in my opinion. At number 9, I have Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, yes, I know, understand it. This man 2 years ago was second in MVP voting. This man 2 years ago, 3 years ago, has had top three offenses in scoring in back to multiple years, back to back years. He had four straight 12-win seasons, despite all the injuries he had with him, all everything, the drama that he had with him. And even though he doesn't perform in the playoffs, a lot of these quarterbacks that are in this NFL league, not all of them perform. So number 9 is not too high for him, or in my opinion, not too low for him. I think number 9 is the perfect spot for Dak. I feel like now that he has more weapons, they brought some running back in, they drafted offensive line, and they put their mouths where their drafting has said, and they said we're going to prove to y'all that we're trying to give Dak some protection by putting our mouth and showing that off and putting it to the offensive line. And that was on the offensive line to prove themselves. I think he's gonna prove it. He has Pickens now. We'll see how that running back core looks. We'll see how the offensive line performs because at the end of the day, the O line is still young, so we can't expect anything crazy from them, but we will see how they perform. And you got to also understand that this season for the Cowboys is a season after Dak's injury, and I think we have seen how he performs in seasons after he has an injury. I think this offense is going to be really well. Y'all already heard me say I think this is a top 5 offense going into next season. And you'll see that Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott was proving right out Dak in 9, and in 10 you can have Goff, you can have Baker, you can have Herbert. There's so many options here. I think, in my personal opinion, at 10 I would have Jared Goff because at the end of the day, despite all the stuff around him and me not being the biggest Jared Goff fan, I still do believe that Goff is still he still puts up numbers. And yes, he does have a Jameer Gibbs. Yes, he does have a David Montgomery. Yes, he does have an Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's still performing. We got to give him credit. Now he's a little bit too turnover prone. And part of the reason why I do have Goff is because of what we have seen Baker do in the playoffs the last 2 years. 2 years ago, we saw Goff take down Baker, and then this season, we saw Baker lose a playoff game in the wild card round that I believe he should have won. And losing to Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. So I think Goff takes that 10 spot. I think the honorable mentions on this is probably Baker, Herbert, and Jordan Love. And they gotta show us more because those are three quarterbacks that, yes, they do have great moments. They do have great regular seasons, and especially for Justin Herbert, they do have great intangibles, but they still got to show us something through a 17, 18 game season. And I feel like, in my personal opinion, all those 10 guys, they have shown us something. One guy, I mean, my number 10 guy went to an NFC championship. My number 9 guy was second in MVP voting. That's my CJ Stroud. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the league a few years ago, and we've seen the league kind of forget about that because of how injury and how problematic that Texas team was. We're partnering putting that blame on the quarterback. It really wasn't. So I feel like those my guys on this list, they have performed, and these guys on these honorable mentions, they still have something to prove to us. Baker has to prove to us. Yes, Baker has proved to us he's good, but he has to prove to us he's top 10. Justin Herbert, he has the intangible, he has the arm, he has the pocket presence. He has all of it, everything, but he still hasn't won with that. So we need to see that from Herbert. And then for Jordan Love, we need to see it. We saw it from him 2 years ago, going to the division round, almost taking down the 49ers. And then we saw him take a step back next year. Now he has to take another step forward this season, upcoming season, and see what he does there. Now let's get to the list itself. For ESPN, their list, I'm not gonna take it so long. ESPN, they have Mahomes at 1, they have Allen at 2, they have Burrow at 3, they have Jackson at 4, they have Daniels at 5, they have Matthew Stafford at 6, they have Herbert at 7, they have Goff at 8, they have Hurts at 9, and they have Baker at 10 with Stroud and Love as the honorable mentions. To be honest with you, we're gonna start with it. Y'all already know what I'm gonna say. Hurts is way too low. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't understand. And last season, I believe, last season he was an honorable mention on this, so I kind of see where they're at. As the executives and the coaches and everything that watches, f- these are people that are around the NFL 24/7, watch the game, watch the film, watch game by game, basically. And to be honest with you, on a game by game basis, I don't know what these quarterbacks are. And to be honest with you, last year they had Herbert at 6, and this year they had Herbert at 7. And I think that's because I think people went down from what they were last year because of the ad of Jaden Daniels. But to be honest with you, I don't know how NFL executives can watch on a game by game basis and see the way Herbert melted down when his team needed him the most. That's one thing we got to give about Hurts. Yes, sometimes he might not show up. In the Packers game, he did not show up. I came on this podcast and immediately said the Hurts was terrible. But he did not put his team in a situation where he lost them the game. He didn't just lose it and turn over the ball consistently. He said, all right, I might not have it today, but I do know what we do have. We do have a run game, and I do know that I can lean on AJ Brown's slant. And it was a lot of the plays were repetitive. And I remember coming on this podcast and saying that the play calling wasn't at his best. And even though the play calling wasn't at his best, we saw Jalen Hurts maneuver around it and say, I might not be having my best game this game. I might be injured, but I'm not going to put myself and my team in a situation where I lose them the ball game. Back to back times, we have seen Justin Herbert do that in the playoffs when it matters most, and not even when it matters most to the most. He's done it in the wild card round. We saw him do it 2 years ago, the 27-point blown lead on Sunday night football. I mean, on Saturday night football with the lights on and everybody watching. Then we see him last year has the lead against the banged up Houston, Texas team. Everybody basically has y'all winning this game. Houston, Texas team banged up, went through so many injuries, went through so much drama throughout the regular season. You come in and Justin Herbert, you throw 5 interceptions. That's unheard of. Unheard of. In the ESPN cast, every time you refresh your screen, it says Justin Herbert threw a pick. And not only was it that, that's losing your team the football game. So I just don't understand how you can watch that. You can watch the way Hurts performs and come out with the conclusion that Herbert's better. And then the same thing with Goff. Divisional round last season. I understand the defense was banged up. I understand the defense was injured. But if it's one thing, if you saw Goff flat out give it all he got, and you're like, all right, the defense, yeah, they did give up 50 plus points. Yes, the defense gave up 50 plus points, and we saw Jared Goff throw multiple pick sixes. We saw Jared Goff throw multiple interceptions. We thought the Lions team, who had basically most of the control despite the Commanders answering back over and over again. We saw a Lions team with the run game that Herbert has, with the run game that Goff has, with the pass game that Goff has, and he comes out here and Jared Goff and throws interception after interception, and now you're seeing the amount of interception total between the deficit of the score is the difference between the football game. And not only is it just your team, but you're not putting your team in the best of situation to win. And I think that's one thing that Jared Goff has done 2 years ago, even. Jared Goff, you have the lead going into it. And yes, I understand the play calling. I understand it all. The play calling, the going for it on fourth down instead of kicking a field goal. Why are you putting yourself in that situation where it's even getting to a fourth down? Put yourself where you can put your team in the best situation to win. That's one thing that Hurts does, and those quarterbacks don't. And I think that's one thing we got to really put into perspective. Yes, the numbers look good. Yes, the intangibles look beautiful. Yes, it all looks great, beautiful, and love it and all of that. But it's it's top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. Quarterbacks aren't just about how well you throw the football, how beautiful the football looks whenever it leaves your hands. It's also about your ability to execute, your ability as a leader, your ability to put your team in the best situation to win the football game. And we have seen both of these quarterbacks get eliminated because of their inability to put their team in a position to win the football game. So I think them being over Hurts, them being over Stroud, especially with Stroud beating Justin Herbert, and y'all know how much I love head-to-head matchups. Now it's not my full thing because I do have Lamar at 2 over Allen. So it's not my full thing. It's mostly about the game you watch. But in both of these games, we have seen where Stroud, you got outplayed by Herbert. Stroud got outplayed Herbert. So it's at the end of the day, we have to understand, like, it's top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, the executives and the scouts, you got to understand these are not just scouts, executives, and coaches. These are types of things that they're probably saying where if you had the option to make me pick, this is the type of quarterback I want to build my around, and this is the type of quarterback I want to develop. So that's kind of what I do see. Yes, if I had the option to pick between Herbert and Hurts, I probably would want to develop Herbert more than Hurts because of all the intangibles, because of how good the ball looks whenever he throws it, because of how great he is in the pocket, because he's the perfect quarterback you probably want. But we got to understand this is a top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, and I think Hurts makes the most of that. I think I'm not mad with Jackson um being below what's his name? Allen. We saw Allen and Jackson play, but in that game, I did not come back from that Bills game. I didn't come into that Bills versus Ravens game with the mentality that Lamar Jackson is a worser quarterback than Josh Allen. I think he was a better quarterback than him coming into that game, and I didn't leave that game where with the mentality that Josh Allen's a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. And you got to watch the game to be honest with you. The run game was substantially. I think the team of the Buffalo Bills just played better than the Baltimore Ravens that day. Yes, Lamar didn't play to his best of abilities, but he still put the team in a situation where they could have won the football game. Where if it's a Mark Andrews drop, now it's a tie game. Now I'm not saying the Bills don't win that because the Bills still have an opportunity to go down and see what they can do. But like at the end of the day, I did not. I feel like Allen played like the better quarterback. That I think Allen put his team in the better position and to win that day. But I feel like Lamar played like the better quarterback, and I feel like Lamar still had the better performance. And it was just outside of numbers. It was play after play. Now both of those guys were given plays, but I feel like Lamar showed up more for his team. And I feel like Allen really didn't need a show for his team, and we give Allen credit because whenever he did need a show for his team in the AFC Championship game, he did to the best of his abilities. And it came down to a throw where it was in Kincaid's hands and he dropped it. So I'm not mad about that. I personally have Lamar over Burrow because if you're talking about quarterbacks, I feel like Lamar doesn't get off to the slow season start of Burrow. I think that's one thing that we do got to give credit about. That's leadership. They're not getting off to an 0-3 start. They're not getting off to a start where they lose to the New England Patriots in the regular season. Yes, Burrow, that's another guy. He has all the intangible. He has all of the stuff. But there's stuff like that. Those little things that set you apart. That's thing Lamar Jackson. He's not coming off the regular season throwing a game against the New England Patriots with whatever supporting cast he has. And we saw Lamar Jackson. And yes, you could say, oh, he didn't have a Jamar and all of that. But we seen Lamar Jackson with year after year not have a wide receiver, not have it, and still be able to lead his team and keep his team and battle his team into football games. So I personally can't see Lamar below Burrow. I can't see Lamar below Burrow and Lamar below Allen, but I understand Allen. I just don't understand Burrow. I seriously don't. I think what a lot of this stuff was, and from what I'm noticing, is I feel like this was a list of if you could pick between this quarterback to like develop around and off the talent and the throwing arm and all of that, that's what I kind of see in this list a little bit that's carrying more than the actual NFL quarterback who you need and who's better. But I think that's just my personal reaction over that list. Let me know what y'all think about the list down below. I think it's a great. I think my personal opinion. I think I made the great list. I just don't. I think ESPN made a terrible list in my personal opinion. I don't like it. There's a lot of things that just don't seem right. It just doesn't sound right. Like Herbert being as high as he is. Just seeing Hurts as low as he is, especially after the way he ended off that regular season. It's confusing. But thank you for listening to this episode of Tough Talk with 2-4, and we'll see you next time.